Good evening, good evening, good evening. Live from Chicago, I'm Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial Group, and this is CB3 on Today's Markets. This is episode 5, and we are just thrilled you're with us tonight. So as I've done in the past, I'm going to wait for a couple minutes, let everybody log on. I'm going to put my first poll out there for you. Here we go. There's my first poll question. All right. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. I want to remind you again, we're not using handouts. The first 3 of these, I used handouts. Last week I didn't, and the feedback that I got was that you preferred it with no handouts. So you can get those later if you'd like. I'll tell you about that at the end of the program. This program, this weekly program, is for anyone interested in the markets, especially in moving back towards prosperity in a post-pandemic world market. And that's what we're all focused on, of course, because not only has there been a huge human issue, a significant financial fallout from this pandemic, and that's what this program is designed to address. We have people that are clients on this call, and we have people that are just generally interested in the markets, and you're both welcome. I want to remind you that my statement that I've used for all 5 of these episodes to open here is adversary is inevitable. Misery is a choice. Adversary is inevitable, but misery is a choice, and we choose not to be miserable. And we're going to talk about things. I'm going to answer questions for you, and just get your feedback on things, and we'll take it from there. So people have asked me, how long am I going to do these? Well, I'm committing to you to do these through Memorial Day. And I'm going to have a little poll at the end to see if the frequency or the content is what you guys want. But I'm going to keep doing these. It seems like we're going to be in this pandemic here clearly into the summer. So I'm at least committing through May, and I'll do it longer if you guys are interested. When I've sent the slides out after my presentation, a couple people have asked, why is that 12 in the corner? And that's because I've been doing these kinds of presentations for 12 years, believe it or not. So that's the reason that we have it. So I've got a couple comments from readers, or from listeners, I guess you would say, that, gave me feedback on last week's program. And one of them said, I'm reading now here from what she wrote. I was sitting on my couch and my husband whispered sweetly to me, the best part about all this is that I get to spend more time with you. And she said she was touched by that until she looked over at him and realized that he was talking to the dog and not her. So such is what we're faced with here in the constituency of our home lockups here in this pandemic. Another woman said, gosh, I was so excited. It was my turn to take out the garbage, and I wondered, what should I wear? What should I wear? We're locked in our homes, and we can't get out. Another guy said, when I changed my clocks from standard time, I didn't realize I was changing it to the twilight zone. These are real emails from people. A guy said to me, I need to practice social distancing from my refrigerator. And I can contest to that or attest to that because it's pretty bad on my side too. I'm eating more than I should be. I hope my trainer's not hearing that on the phone. So, all right, well, I'm going to show the results in the poll here and take a screenshot of that, and appreciate you guys giving me that feedback. I've got one more poll while we're waiting for just a couple more people to log on here. Are you able to procure household supplies? Are you able to procure household supplies? We'll wait for another couple people and then I'll begin. Another client said to me, I haven't decided where we're going to go for Easter. I asked my wife and I said, well, where do you want to go? And she said, well, let's see. We've got the living room, the dining room, the hall, or I guess even the bedroom. Normally we're talking about whether we're going to the in-laws or his parents or her parents. But yeah, it's a very different Easter. And of course, it's Passover this week. And for all of us that are celebrating, religious times, it's very unusual. And I'm wishing you guys all the best on that. Welcome, Keith. Glad you liked the line about more time with a dog. Yeah, that was a real email. Evening, Alice. Welcome. All right, let me show the results here. Only got one. Anything else? Okay, we got a couple more on the procuring of household supplies. All right. All right. And here are the results. It's about 50-50 there, huh? Looks like it's exactly 50-50. So, all right. Hey, Tommy, glad you're there. Thanks for joining. All right. One last poll here before I start in on this. What is your view today of the coronavirus? What is your view today on the coronavirus? Are you mostly staying positive? Are you frustrated and cooped up but okay? Or, ugh, if this lasts for 2 more months, I'm going to lose my mind. I've had people emailing me during the week saying various states of, hey, this isn't so bad. If they're introverts or if they're extroverts, they're just frustrated beyond words. So anyway, let me know what you think. Fill it in there. And we'll start here in just a few more moments. We're seeing people log on, still people logging on here, and we will get going. All right, 2 and 2. Looks like another 50-50 split. Nobody's too frustrated here. There are the results. Okay. As you know from last week, I'm breaking this presentation into 4 pieces. The Corona America, the U.S. economy, CB3 account holdings, and investment ideas. And again, if you're not a CB3 client, it's okay. We'll just talk about our investment ideas, but our clients that are on the line do want to know what we're doing. So, yeah, as long as I'm financially stable, I like that. Thanks, Tommy. So here we go. Let's talk about Corona America. We are in a medical crisis that has caused an economic crisis, which could become a financial crisis. However, the Federal Reserve, with its monetary policy, and the U.S. Treasury, with fiscal policy, which we'll talk more about, are now working together to prevent a financial crisis. We can't stop the medical crisis. We can't stop the economic crisis, meaning we're almost certain to have a recession, but we can stop, at least with the help of the Treasury and the essentially the administration and the Federal Reserve, a financial crisis. In the United States, COVID-19, the peak is projected to be next week, and that's a really big deal. Peak is expected to be next week, okay? According to Vice President Pence, just a few minutes ago, said we are testing 100,000 people a day in America for a total of 2 million tests since the 1st of February. And this, I don't know if that means February 1st or just February 10th, 15th, somewhere there early in February, but it's an astounding number. So clearly our government is being, as, in my opinion, as, forthwith as they can be about getting this done. So I'm looking at a graph here, and again, I'll send you guys these slides if you want them, but about 500,000 cases in the U.S. now, with 151,000 of those in the New York, New Jersey area. So about a third of the cases of the whole country are still in New York. And as far as the test per million people, so I just gave you that 100,000, the U.S. is actually at the top on this. I mean, there have been criticisms in the press and from people saying we're not testing. Well, the U.S. is testing about 6,000 of every million people. That's how many tests are being administered. The U.K., on the other hand, is only about 3.7 thousand per million residents. And China's not even on this list because obviously their population is about 10 times what ours is. So they're not even close to testing the number of people. I mean, considering that we arguably were underprepared for a pandemic of this size, that they've ramped up this much testing this quickly is pretty amazing to me. What I'm seeing in my data is that China is about 85% done on their curve. Remember, we're always trying to get to this curve. They're about 85% to where it should be, I won't say non-existent, but certainly a footnote within another 15%. Notice I'm giving you percentages, though, and not specific timelines. Now, the U.S. and Spain, I can see on my chart they're cresting just about at the peak. So Spain and the U.S. should hit their peak within 6 to 9 days, and Italy is already heading down. So that's a positive, obviously. So the predictions that we were hearing for 240,000 deaths just a week ago in the daily press conferences, now they're revising that down to 60,000 by early August. 60,000 deaths by early August, which is an astounding drop, 25%. And of course, 60,000 is still a tragedy. It's terrible. But I'm expecting that number could actually be lowered again. That's what I'm thinking. So the different states, though, have different levels of alertness. For instance, statewide closures, and this is something people ask me. It's like, we have this pandemic that's just shutting down the country. Well, not totally. 50 out of 50 states have shut their schools. 49 have stay-at-home orders, so only West Virginia does not. 45 states have closed businesses. 29 are recommending but not requiring masks. Only half the states, 27, a little more than half, are having travel restrictions, and only 15 states have state and local curfews. So it's not as big a shutdown as the media is telling you. We still are able to go out, have a walk, get groceries. Yeah, you see the stories, which I did, about this guy that was water surfing in Maine, and they arrested him in handcuffs and left his surfboard there on the shore and fined him $200. I mean, it's crazy stuff like that. But for the most part, we're being very compliant. So I think the future for what's going to happen after this pandemic is that 95% of America's pharmaceuticals have been either produced or shipped from, after assembly, all these little prescriptions and everything, from China. That's not going to stay. In fact, drug production, I predict, is going to be moving home. And I'm seeing in today's and yesterday's news, Japan is willing to pay $2.5 billion, that's US dollars, not in yen, to incentivize companies to pick up their manufacturing. In other words, we'll pay your moving costs, says the government of Japan and the US government, to pick up companies and move them back to their native land. I think the US and Japan starting that is just the beginning, folks. I think you're going to see an exodus from China for two reasons. One, they started this pandemic and didn't give us good news on it, didn't give us accurate news. When I say good, I mean accurate. And two, nobody wants to have their supply chain totally dependent on this economy, this Chinese economy. It's just crazy. So that's my bit on the coronavirus there. So before I move on to the economy, let me give you another poll here, because we're really wanting to see what you guys think of the data I'm giving you, if it's too much, too little. So what's your view of America's economy? America is on life support. America's been crippled, but it's okay. I'm an optimist about second half 2020. So that 2H means second half. In other words, you may not be an optimist now, but you think, July through December is going to be good. And the fourth answer is, maybe 2021 will have a turnaround, but you're really negative on this year. If you could go ahead and just click on that and give me your feedback, I'd appreciate it. It just helps us to formulate answers. So, all right. That's good. Thank you, guys. I'll leave it open just a little bit more. Okay. Very good. July, end of year. Thanks, Keith. Yeah, I think that's where I am too. All right. Well, it's evenly split, 33% across, and that's good. You're saying maybe 2021. Some of you think it's on life support. I hear you. It feels like that, depending on, what sector of the economy you're in. And I'm going to cover that in this next section. I'm going to go ahead and show these results, and we'll take a snapshot of that. But thanks for your answers. So let's talk about the economic data. First of all, the Dow 30 just had its best week since 1938. I need to say that year again. The Dow just had its best week since 1938. 1938. That's incredible. The S&P has now rallied into bull market territory. What does that mean? Well, it means that the S&P is in a bull market, the Dow is in a bull market, the NASDAQ is still in a bear market. Both the S&P and Dow have rallied to a bull market status, which is 20% above the low in just days, when the average bear market is more like 19 months. Okay, so here's my concern. Yes, the S&P is now 50% off of its first quarter loss. In other words, it's 50% higher than March 23rd. But the concern on that is that this is also about where 1987 had a reaction bounce and 2008 had a reaction bounce. So we're watching this next week very, very carefully. It's good that the market's closed tomorrow for Good Friday. Lets people think about things, how they want to invest coming into next week, and if they have optimism. In addition to this, just yesterday, the DAX, essentially the German Dow, also entered a bull market. And since that's the biggest market in Europe, that's really important. So as I said earlier, the Dow exited its bear market. The Dow's up 28% from its low. The S&P is up 50% from its low, and the NASDAQ is not far behind. So it's a very unusual situation, not only to have this few a days for a market to flip into bear market and then back into bull market, but it's also unusual when they do it one index at a time. First the Dow, then the S&P. We hope that the NASDAQ will follow next week. So what's making some of this possible? Well, it's because even just this morning, that's what I'm reading from here, Chairman Powell said the Fed is going to step in now with an additional $2.3 trillion in loans, $600 billion to small and mid-sized businesses, and $500 billion short-term notes directly issued from U.S. states. This is providing what's called liquidity into the markets. And the purpose of it is not only to provide ready cash for people who need it, but also to signal to market participants that, hey, your government is going to step in here. Now, of course, this is where the debate happens. If we, quote, get used to this government always stepping in, aren't we really setting the stage for becoming a nanny state where we get dependent on the government doing this? And of course, withdrawing this loans, getting paid off eventually, is certainly something that has a lot of people concerned in when that's going to happen. So we'll be following that very closely. So how much can I borrow from the Federal Small Business Loan Program? Well, interestingly, one of my daughters has a small business and she employs nannies. And she sent me this text and said, Dad, are you aware that small business owners can get, $10,000 just to keep your doors open if you apply? And I had not heard about it. That was kind of embarrassing that she did and I didn't. But so she filled it out and I filled it out, and I haven't gotten any money yet. But when I hit enter on the response, it came back and said, you are applicant number 3,350,000, and the program had only been going on for 48 hours. So yeah, there are people that are wanting to take advantage of this, and we might as well too. My income has been affected, certainly, as probably everyone on this call has had an effect. And there are programs out there. So check into it, see what's on there. If you need some help, shoot me an email, cb3@cb3.com, and Alice or I will be glad to help in any way we can. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of what has happened here. Welcome, Don. Crippled will be okay. Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Welcome, Don. So I have a graph here, and you'll see this if you guys want to get this chart at some point, but just follow me on this. On March 4th, the U.S. capitalization of the S&P 500 reached a high of, for the month, only 4 days into the month, of a plus $1.5 trillion. That's how much it grew in just the first 4 days, of March. By the 23rd of March, which was the low of the bear market, which only lasted for a few days, we had lost $6 trillion in market cap. Now, the problem is we start throwing around billion, trillion, and million. So we know what a million is. A billion is 1,000 million, and a trillion is 1,000 billion. I mean, it's a pretty staggering number, a really staggering number. And then by March 31st, we were down only $3 trillion. So these are just enormous numbers that are being thrown around by what's happening in the economy. Lydia, thanks for saying this. Funds will be coming in from the SBA soon. I hope so. I'm going to put a love on that. Thanks for being here. Hey, Connie and Larry, glad you're here. But that's what's going on. That's what happened in the month of March. Just enormous change in value in the S&P 500 stocks. Now, this isn't all across the board, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this series, is to let you guys know not every aspect of the economy, not all 11 sectors are having the same challenges. For instance, consumer staples, that's going to be your P&Gs, your Walmarts, other goods stores like Campbell's Soup. They were only down 9%, okay, since the market high on February 19th. 9% is still a lot. But energy down 38%, financials down 30%, industrials 26%, and each sector has its own challenges. As a portfolio manager, this is what our task is to do, and this is what we're doing on your behalf, those of you that are clients, and if you're not, it's fine, just follow what I'm saying. We need to see what parts of this economy, what part of the sectors, there are 11 sectors in the S&P 500 and in the NASDAQ and in the Russell, which ones are going to be able to escape with the least amount of damage, and which ones are going to have the fastest trajectory to get out of this post-pandemic era in American history. That's what we're here doing for you every day. Those of you that have been following me for years know that I place a high emphasis on the jobs report, which happens the first Friday of every month. There's always an exception. If the first Friday is the first of the month, like it is in May, then they move it to the next Friday. So the big report every month is that Friday unemployment. Well, the Thursday report talks about weekly claims, and that's never really been that important. But all of a sudden now it's a huge number because the charts have gone from anywhere from 200,000 to 210 to 215. These are new claims for unemployment. 3 weeks ago, it was 3 million filings. 2 weeks ago, it was 7.2 million. Today, this morning, it actually dropped a little bit to only 7 million, but 7 million is a staggering number, How does that play out in the future? We're still obviously waiting to see how that plays out. Now, one of the things folks have told me is, I think this is, I'm trying to be careful here. Some folks have said to me, really the business owners are going to be okay here. It's the little guy that's going to be hurt. We're the ones that are, sacrificing everything, and we're the ones that are paying for this pandemic, so to speak. But the Federal Reserve inquired over the last 10 days and released these results just yesterday. 47% of the sources to keep a business going are from the owner's personal funds. So a small business, the owner jumps in almost half the time and puts their money up to make payroll or whatever. 37% is reduction of CEO salaries. So that's almost the same. The third most take out debt. In other words, the owners put in their own cash, they cut their salaries, then they go to the bank and say, hey, I need a loan. And of course, the government's making tons of loans right now, which is a great thing. Only fourth at 33% is lay off employees or reduce hours, defer expenses 29%, close or sell the business 17%. It's pretty low. So this is actual data from the Federal Reserve on interviewing, I think, 1,200 small businesses. Okay, so this is the hard data. When you hear in the media that the whole country is collapsing, and it's just not true. It's not true. Are things bad? Of course they are. But the unemployment data that I just read you shows that. But small businesses are really fighting to stay alive, and I think they're going to survive. I think we're going to go back, and I'll know more about this next Thursday night when I see you, but I think we're going to go back to work here in America really close to May 1st. Not unilaterally across the country, but in many areas. So people ask me, how is this going to affect our GDP or gross domestic product? If you look at a chart, you will see, let me just make sure haven't missed anybody here. See Connie, hey, yeah, a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. I like that quote. Yeah, I think that's Ross Perot. So here's the deal. We have anywhere from 3, 3.5, 2.25. I mean, these are normal numbers for GDP. During the recession of 2008, we had a terrible plunge of -8. The projection for the second quarter of this year, which we won't know what the second quarter is until we get to late in July when they release GDP numbers. Okay, we're in the second quarter now, but they don't release data on that until July, and it actually gets revised in August. But we're seeing minus 25% expected, and it's just kind of astounding, really. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I think it's possible in a minus 25% there that we could see that blip happen just one time. Okay? Never trust the media. Thanks, Nelly. I appreciate that. How are you, Shar? Good to see you online here. I'm trying to always see my scrolling here. My screen doesn't always scroll when I'm trying to present here, but you guys hang with me on that. So there's where we are on GDP. Expect really bad numbers, guys. Really, really bad numbers when we see the second quarter data. Not sure what's going to happen with the first quarter because this happened late in February. And certainly March has been a terrible month. I'm not really sure how bad the numbers are going to be for the first quarter, which we'll start getting in late April. Okay, so next item here is earnings. Okay, so how are earnings doing? Well, we released earnings the first and second all the way through about the 9th week of the quarter. So that means pretty much through the middle to the 3rd week of May, we're going to start seeing earnings for the first quarter. Okay, so, and I'm kind of pensive here. First of all, let me see who else I see. Hey, Chris, how are you? Hey, Shar and Allie. Allie, thank you, guys. Feel free to send questions in, guys. I'll stop here at the end of this module, take questions. But what I'm seeing from Reuters in the first 21 companies of the S&P 500 that have reported is that 76 have beat their estimated earnings, 76%. Now that number is normally about 78, but I'll take a 76 when it's supposed to be 78. I'm sure, or should I say when it's traditionally about 78, I'm sure that that number is going to drop as we see the full S&P 500 report over the next 5 to 6 weeks. But for now, I'll take that number, and I'm pretty happy about it. Pretty happy about it. So what is fiscal policy, and how is it being used? I mentioned this earlier with the Fed. Fiscal policy means the government adjusts its spending and tax rules to address a major emergency or something that's happening in the economy that threatens the livelihood of Americans. Okay? To date, there have been $100 billion in small business loans already processed, and that's estimated to have saved about 9.5 million jobs. Now, this is data just this morning. When I do these videos, guys, literally I was adding data like 45 minutes before I went live. But this is from the Commerce Department as reported in the Wall Street Journal, but I did get the raw data from the Commerce Department too. So $100 billion in small loans just in the last 2 weeks already processed, which have saved as many as 9.5 million jobs. That seems like an astronomically high number of jobs that they could calculate it, but we'll be following this data. And candidly, I think the market must be buying it because we closed today, if you guys watched, really close to a month high on the S&P, which is actually hit intraday, even though it didn't close that high. So what do we do to survive a bear market? What do we do to survive? Well, you do the same thing that hikers do. You remain calm and you don't make sudden moves. What do we do to survive a bear market? You remain calm and you don't make sudden moves. Most of my clients, in fact, all my clients know that I don't make sudden moves when we have these downward lurches because the market goes up on a staircase, hope you can see this, and down in an elevator. Let's do that again if you've never seen it. Up on a staircase and down in an elevator. And we certainly, it was like the cable broke on the elevator on February 23rd because we went to a bear market on March 23rd. Well, we went to the low of the bear market. We were in a bear market earlier than that. So you have to stay the course. You have to stay the course. Emotions work great for many aspects of life. Finding a spouse, raising our children, but when it comes to the market, it just doesn't work, guys. And that's why we're here. So I've said to you many times that I think it's really a miracle that this pandemic did not hit 12 years ago. Imagine if we had had this pandemic hit at just the depths of the financial crash of 2008, 2009, when we were in a secular bear market. We remain in a secular bull market, which started, in my opinion, in 2013. I don't think we could have handled the brunt of that back in 2008 and 9. If we were ever able to handle this level of a pandemic, it's right now, when on February 19th, the high of the market still, we were at the peak probably ever in the U.S. economy. All right, so before I talk about investments, that's the third module. Let me just ask you guys a few questions, and I'm going to look through here. Let me give you this poll. So are these videos understandable? JP Morgan put out -40. Yeah, I think that's overkill. I did see that, Chris. Thanks for saying that. Will dividend stocks still pay them out? Great question, Nellie. One of the reasons that crude oil had a huge bounce on Monday was that Exxon let the market know we're the biggest oil play in the U.S., not the world, but in the U.S., and we're not cutting our dividend. Other small and mid-sized companies have been saying we're not sure about that. But when Exxon made that announcement, it was a really, really big thing. Really big thing. So will dividend stocks still pay them out? If they are able to, is the answer on that, Nellie. And I think the ones at risk are in the most dangerous sectors. Certainly that would be energy, even though Exxon said yes, but there are a lot of midline oil companies that are at risk, I think. Financial companies. I think you may see banks dropping their dividends. And that's one of the reasons why the financial sector has been so beat down. Do I think that Apple will drop their dividend? Not a chance. No, I don't. Do I think that Merck and Abbott and Eli Lilly will drop their dividends? I do not. And you would probably guess that that's where we're looking for our GI, our growth and income program. We want to make sure that if we're paying a certain multiple for a stock, that dividend is going to hold. That's really important. So thanks for that question. If emotions work well in finding a spouse, we'd all be in our first marriage. Great line. That might actually be I'm going to put a funny icon on that. It might be the line of the show so far. Thanks, Don. Yes, as someone who knows very well about any of this, I think you're doing a good job explaining everything. Well, thank you. Appreciate the comment. Gosh, that's 7. That's I thought somebody would put it sounds like Sesame Street if it was like too easy or anything. So, all right, let me just talk now about some of our investments. So you guys that are clients, this is specifically for you, but those of you that are not clients, that's fine. Let's see, close the results. Let's see, we get that. Yeah. So this is just letting you know how I think about things. So the coronavirus obviously has changed the paradigm of everything, of how we evaluate risk. And then we look at the economic stats, some of which I have gone through tonight, and every week I try to give you that, and put those two together in some sort of formula, mix in politics, mix in fundamental and technical influences, and that creates a decision process for buying stocks. So I'm just going to talk about some of the stocks we have, just a few. For instance, AMD, so Advanced Micro Devices. Their CEO on the recent call. So one of the things we do in our business is we listen to calls. They don't just give us a call as a CEO. They go on a call for all kinds of portfolio managers, and 7,000 of us listen to the same speech about why they're such a great company. And sometimes we believe it, sometimes we don't. But he's saying he still thinks they're going to approach 200 million units for their devices, and expecting 5G to still roll out roughly on time. And so we like them, and we've been in them for a while. We got a nice profit. Not all of them are that way. And to be fair, please understand, we have winners, we have losers. Not everything we do is a winner. We are in Apple. We've been in Apple for a long time. We actually have it in 2 portfolios now. It's rare. Normally, I don't overlap portfolios, but it's in CG and SG for those of you that are in that. the one of the analysts that I follow said after discussions with an Apple supply chain executive, I didn't have it, but he had it. His estimate will be that they're going to probably be at 40 million new iPhones, down from 80 million. But I think, again, knowing this company, that probably is going to end up being more like 60. And a lot of that will be dependent on, of course, how quickly things turn around. So we like Apple. They have been very resilient from a technical point of view in this whole downturn. Another company we like and have had for a while, Costco. Interestingly, though, today they reported a 12.1 jump in domestic sales, comparable to last March. Gee, I wonder why. And yet they finished the day down 2%. And to the layman, they might say that how could that be? Well, because the market expected them to be up 15 to 17% from last March. Okay, part of the reason that they weren't up at 15 to 17% is, anybody know? Because there's no inventory. People are having to wait outside 8 feet apart. Every time somebody exits the store, somebody can go in the store, and then when they get there, the shelves are partly empty or mostly empty. And this is, it's not unique to New York and New Jersey and Washington State and New Orleans and Detroit, the really hard-hit areas. It's all over the country. But we really like Costco. It's a staple. We like the sector. We like the company. Okay. And the fourth area we're looking at is the NASDAQ. Now, well, that's not really a stock, is it? That's an entire exchange. Well, really the NASDAQ is driven by technology. The NASDAQ is only down 9% this year. Now, 9 is a lot, but not nearly as much as the Russell, which is down over 25%. So sometimes what we're looking at is just as important as what we're not looking at. So we are not looking at small cap and medium cap, mid caps right now, which is an interesting phenomena because usually when the U.S. dollar is strong, which it is right now, it's right at 100 on the dollar, the foreign exchange market, 100 versus the 6 baskets of other currencies. Yeah, we are surprised that small and mid caps, and I think it's because people just don't have confidence that these small companies are going to be able to stick around. So we have, long before February 23rd, gotten rid of most of it. And now by the end of February, we were rid of all of any of small cap investments at all. So we've stayed away from that. There will come a time for small cap, but right now is not it. So let me pause, give you another question here. So most people have said they kind of like these. This is the 5th one we've done, but tell me what works for you. Weekly, twice a month. I'm not offering daily, okay, and that's probably fine. Monthly would be okay, or quarterly would suffice. Let me know on that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to look through the questions. NVIDIA is bigger than AMD. It could be, Tom. Could be. NVIDIA had a good bump here on Tuesday. And so the key is to go to Costco 30 minutes before they close, no lines, as opposed to early in the morning. Thanks, Nellie. I've heard people say that, yeah, you need to get there at 6 a.m. and wait. But yeah, that's not what I'm seeing. So guys, answer, okay, weekly. That was unanimous, 100%. Okay. Let me do one more question while I'm checking your questions here, okay? What time? So I've been doing these 7 o'clock Central. We could do it a little bit later. We could do 6 Central, 6:30 Central. We got people online here in every time zone. So let me know if you like it where it is. That's great. Let me continue to look through questions. All right. Weekly is good. Thanks, Don. Andre, we have no lines in small town. Andre, you're in North Florida, I think, on the coast. I'm trying to remember. No, are you on the southwest side of Florida? No lines, huh? Good for you, Andre. That's a blessing. Okay. I'll leave that open just a little bit longer. I'm still looking through questions here. Appreciate your feedback, guys. I've really enjoyed doing these. Again, I've been doing it for years. When the market crashed, while you guys are filling out this survey, in 2008, I went out in May of 2008 and did my first fireside chat. I did them in 3 cities. I went to um, we had clients in the Southwest, so I did them in Phoenix, I did them in South Florida, and did them in Chicago, our home market. And I was doing them twice a year for 12 years. And then with this pandemic, even though I did one in January, which you guys can see at cb3.com if you want to check that out, people just started saying, this is crazy. The market's literally changing by the hour. So looks like you guys like this time. 5, 1, and 1. Okay. Appreciate the feedback. We will consider that. So the last area here is in progress ideas. So Repligen is a really strong biotech company that we like, and we've been in this before. They were really struggling a little earlier this year. But with respect to its market positioning in this coronavirus, we like it. We realize that some of their customers, and that's going to be hospitals, medical treatment centers, they've had some delays in their regulatory investigations, I guess, that into some of their drugs that have not received approval as quickly as they'd like. And we still, though, expect the underlying demand for these drugs to be very strong. We purchased Johnson & Johnson. I mentioned that last week. We liked the results of Johnson so far. We actually got that at a really good time. And the same with Abbott. They're the two kind of at the front of what's going on in testing and whatever. But we still like Repligen. That's RGen is the ticker symbol if you guys are jotting this down. So that's Romeo Golf Echo November. If you want to check out that company, we've had it before. We do like the company. And here's another one. Love the interactive surveys. Thanks, Lydia. Appreciate that. Don, walk to the grocery stores in eastern Montana. Not bad attitudes. Everybody carries. Yes, I guess so. If you're carrying, and folks of you that are not from Montana, he doesn't mean carrying grocery bags. He means carrying arms. So probably not likely to get into many debates out there with a shopper in Montana. But here's an interesting one. We've been in Disney on and off because we're fairly active traders. Over the years, Disney, and we've been out for a little while here because we saw just a weakening in theme park attendance, and then of course a collapse, massive operating losses in their theme parks. And yet Disney just crossed 50 million subscribers in its new streaming service. To give you a perspective on this, the service was launched just 5 months ago. To sign up 50 million subscribers in a short time like that is remarkable, considering that it took Netflix years, 2.5 to 3 years to get to that milestone. Now, granted, Netflix was at the bleeding edge, whereas Disney was going into a already well-established consumer pattern. So they're at, I think, $7 a month. And when you think about all the number of their films, like The Lion King, that's in 25 languages, the interesting comment here, if you're taking notes, I'd just like to know your feedback, and maybe I'll ask you about this next week. I think Disney is seriously wondering, are we ever going to build another theme park? Now, that's a radical statement. I need to say that again. I think Disney is asking themselves, are we going to build another entertainment park when we can have a subscription service that if we can penetrate enough of the world's market? Keep in mind, there are 3 billion people in China and 2.5 billion people in India. Why wouldn't we want a subscription main revenue, subscription-based model for their revenue generator, rather than something that is dependent on weather, it's dependent on staff? I mean, there's a lot for a Disney to be looking at. And with, as one one of my viewers says here, and the kids are all home and watching Disney now. Of course, Disney wants to appeal to a wide swath of America, but waiting to see. Disney had a real nice bump today. They opened up about 7% on this information that I just gave you, and then they tailed off for the rest of the day. But we may be in Disney next week. We will see. But that's what we're looking at. So here's my summary for tonight. It's been a little long here, guys. I'm sorry. I hope I haven't kept you too long. We have a long history of rising from the ashes to become stronger than before. We've done it through, you could argue, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression, economic crises, and we're going to do it again here. Brilliant minds and companies will look at this landscape. They'll look at it as an opportunity and not as a woe is me, and they're going to come out with some incredible ideas. Just today at the press conference, Mike Pence announced there were 19 companies working on a coronavirus vaccine. And it may be multiple companies. I don't know how this works, but it may be multiple companies that end up sharing a patent, which would be great. As long as it's an American company, I'm going to be thrilled. So I think the biggest paradigm shift we're going to see is that the opportunity and the value in having people work from home has been underestimated by American businesses, and that's going to take a serious review very shortly after Memorial Day with, you know what, maybe we're just going to keep this in place. So my motto for today is none of us chooses our challenges. Fate and history chooses them for us. We control how we respond to these challenges. And I'm choosing to go out and talk to you guys on a weekly basis. I hope I've provided these last 5 sessions some calm, some good information, some honest information. When it's tough news, I give you that too. I'm here to talk to one of my viewers said, you're just like fam. And I had to ask my 25-year-old son what that meant. And he said, it's family, Charlie. Oh, but then the guy said, no, fam equals financial answer man. So I'm going to be your fam. All right. I'm going to be your financial answer man. I may not have all the answers, but I'm going to do the best I can to give you comfort here. It's my deeply held belief that we will not only survive this pandemic, but we will emerge a much stronger nation. And that's what I believe. My last question for you here. Okay. Let's see. Are you interested in the slides? So in the first 3 episodes, I sent you guys the slides ahead of time, but some of you didn't get them because you're not clients and you're just kind of tuning in, and that's fine. So I'm not really sending slides ahead of time, but I can send them later. I've been sending them on Sunday night when I've also issued an email. So if you're interested in what I'm doing and you're just kind of finding us on Facebook and we don't have your email, if you want to give us your email, we will send you the slides. So that's why I'm saying here in the survey, do you want it, Sunday night? Do you want it tomorrow morning? Do you look through it and check anything out? If you don't, you just want to hear me live, that's fine. This is for you. It's not for me. So they just bought a huge amount of land in Florida. Yeah, you must be talking about Disney. Did not know that. So that's kind of amazing. And worship venue has changed completely. Yes, that's absolutely true. It's interesting. I'm just going to wait for you guys to finish this survey. The Moody Church. So several of you real nice about my comment last time, or my story on the chocolate store where I went in and how we swiped the card and they handed me the bag on a stick and everything. Well, this last Sunday, Palm Sunday, Moody Church used Zoom technology to present like 15 kids in their homes and somehow managed to coordinate this, and they sang, because every year at Moody Church, they do a kids pageant. Well, they couldn't quite do that this year, but each of the kids had a little testimony and everything, and it was really moving. It's just really, really special. And worship venues are going to change, and the way that they market to their parishioners. Certainly, sports are. Isn't it fascinating to think that the NFL ended on the 3rd of February, 4th of February? This pandemic hits, and they may be the only sport that is relatively unscathed if we're able to open the season shortly after Memorial Day. So Um, it's just fascinating the way society's changing. So I'm going to go ahead and show these results. Looks like most of you are just happy to have it, live, and that's fine too. I would ask you to like the Facebook page here if you see it, if it's working for you, and then tell your family and friends. Okay, we're here to answer questions. Here to you know field really anything you throw at us. The financial answer man. I'm FAM. So if I don't know the answer, I'll get it back to you in email or call. So China has 1.4 billion people. Oops, 4 times. Thanks, Keith. And you corrected me last week too. I think I said, guys, 20,000 deaths in the U.S. I think we're going to be at 15,000 by the end of the week, which is still, a ton of lives. But yeah, I want to get my data right. Thank you for listening. Send chocolates and make your client chocolate shop happy. Yeah, that's a great idea. I am trying to continue to, patronize the local businesses. When you walk in, I tell you, it's like you're their long lost father or cousin or something. We got to keep them around. So, Andre, thanks. Tonight or tomorrow morning, look through to consider for the trading day. Thanks. Virtual Lord's Supper tomorrow on Good Friday. Thank you for that, Nellie. So, well, guys, I think that we've got everything out here. You've answered all the poll questions. We're right at 50 minutes, a little bit longer than last time. Always want to keep these under an hour and respect your time. Really appreciate you being here tonight. And if I didn't get anything answered, just shoot me an email, cb3@cb3.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Wishing you a blessed weekend. This is going to be a weekend like we've never had in America. But just as I said in my final slide over here, I deeply believe we're going to exit this pandemic a stronger country. God bless you guys, and I will see you a week from Thursday.